How do clouds float? You may be thinking to yourselves, well, this time Keys really lost it. He's gone off the deep end. What do you mean, how do clouds float? They just do. They just float. There's nothing to it. Or is there? Look at the clouds if you can when you're watching this video. If you can't, then sometime later, try, look up at the sky, gaze at the sky. Look at those puffy white clouds. Innocent, blameless, puffy white clouds. Just floating along, dancing along the sky without a care in the world. And they're floating. Have you ever wondered how or why they float? Or do we just take it as granted? Well, and in response, to these rhetorical questions I am asking you, the listener, and myself, you might be, answering, you might be inclined to answer, well, they just do, or they are lighter than air. Are they really lighter than air? I'm looking at a bunch of clouds in front of me through this window. They keep changing shape, swirling, twirling around. So beautiful. Oh, look, a butterfly. And they're floating. Are they lighter than air? I wonder. What are they made of? Are they made of gas or water? Is gas a liquid is water a liquid or a gas? Well, it could be both, right? We know. It can also be a solid. Okay. Well, in what form then is the water in the clouds? And how do we know that they're made of water? Well, we see them raining here and there. Sometimes they, expel water droplets. So, you could say that, okay, through observation, direct observation. I've seen them myself. The rain comes down from the clouds. There's water coming from the clouds. Okay, let's give ourselves that right there. Okay, so we know that much. But do we really know how they're floating? So let's continue down this avenue of thinking, this mental exercise. So let's say, okay, they're made of water. Is it in a gaseous state or a liquid state? Well, if it were in a liquid state, they would already be raining, wouldn't they? Okay. So if they were in a gaseous state, that means they would be steam, water vapor. Am I right there, Keith, or not? Well, you would be, but what's the temperature of clouds? You would have to take a look at the temperature of clouds. So the temperature of the clouds, if they were water vapor, then what's the temperature of water vapor? It's near 100 degrees Celsius. Okay. Wow. That's the boiling point of water. Are the clouds boiling? I don't think so. I don't see them boiling. So interesting. So, are you telling me they're not steam then? Then how are they floating? Oh my gosh. Maybe you're onto something here. Well, let's keep thinking. Why don't we? Use our mind, our discernment, our God-given chitti, as it's called in Sanskrit. The sharpness of our yanya, another word in Sanskrit, which is, what they call the sixth chakra, which is right in between your two eyes. And we're supposed to use it to think. right? It's the glory of God to conceal a matter. And, it's for us to go out and discover these things. Try to unravel these mysteries through our God-given talents and tools that He gives us. Okay, all right. So back to the clouds. They're moving, they're dancing, they're swirling, they're twirling, they're chanting. I don't know what they're doing. They're meditating. They're doing something, and they're changing shapes. I don't know if there's a person in the world that hasn't been looking at the clouds and just wondered, what kind of shape it is. Does it look like a dog? Does it look like a whale? This one looks like a cartoon character. This one looks like a bird. This one looks like a dragon. This one looks like, a flower. Whatever the case may be. So you've probably, and I've probably spent countless hours cloud gazing. Yet we've never really asked ourselves why they float or how they float. How it is that they manage to stay up there. Well, the temperature is not the answer because they're not boiling. They're not at 100 degrees Celsius. What temperature are the clouds then? Here, I'll put the answers that I get from Google here on the video. Now, why do I put so many screenshots from Google? You might be saying, well, that's the most despicable and disreputable source that you could think of, Keith. Why are you citing Google? Well, that's exactly why I do it. I do it on purpose. Because you can, if you know what you're looking for, and if you know how to extract the answers from these tools of the enemy, you can actually get them to spit out the truth, even if they're not doing it on purpose. It's like when you're questioning a witness. Not that I'm a lawyer or anything like that, but if in a movie setting, let's say that the opposing counsel attorney is questioning the witness or the suspect, and they're cross questioning him, cross examining. They don't ask the direct questions. Sometimes they do, but then they start with the direct questions where you might get a lie in response, and then you start going around the perimeter of the subject matter, and you start asking these secondary side questions so that you build up, a 3D hologram per se, in this analogy of what's really happened, what's really going on, extracting the truth, like you're pulling teeth, almost. So that's the analogy. So I'm pulling teeth here with Google, with all these screenshots, and asking it partial questions step at a time so that we may arrive at, some sort of truth. And that's a key to the truth there. A key to the truth is that you can use the tools that are given to you, even if they're these most heinous, despicable sources that are always going to be lying to you. And you can, if you know what you're doing, you can get them to tell you the truth. Not directly, maybe, but indirectly. Okay, so just look what I did here with the screenshots on the video, and you'll see what I'm trying to convey. Anyway, back to the puffy white clouds. Are they made of cotton candy? Maybe is that why they're floating? The cotton candy floats. It's pretty light, but I wouldn't go so far as to say it floats like a balloon. And we see the clouds floating like balloons. They're pretty much weightless in our eyes from our level of perception. But are they weightless? How much does a cloud weigh? An average cloud? Well, let's ask, the witness here. So it says they claim that the average cloud weighs 1 million pounds. Oh my gosh, they're telling you something. Is it true or not? Well, let's say for now that it is, just for argument's sake, but, this warrants further investigation. And I would, that's why I'm doing these videos. I'm sharing everything that God is revealing to me, as silly as that sounds, but, I didn't come up with this. It just, he struck me with this knowledge at a moment about 2 weeks ago. And, well, he's compelling me to share. So I'm sharing. And please share all my videos if you like them, of course. Like, subscribe, download the videos, rip them, repost them. Please do. Go ahead. That's what they're for, okay? So the clouds dancing in the sky again. The cotton candy analogy. Well, so the weight, going back to the weight. Okay. So the average cloud, Google is telling us, or these fake scientists are telling us, weighs about 1 million pounds. 1 million pounds? That's just uncanny. That's incredible. 1 million pounds is like the weight of 100 elephants, I think. So 100 cars flying past your head, flying over your head, every other moment, if the sky is cloudy. Would you be scared, for example? Oh my gosh, the cars are going to fall on your head. Yeah, you'd be scared. But how come we're not scared of the clouds falling on top of us? Well, maybe because we've never observed that happen. We've never seen that happen. Remember, here on this channel, my investigations, my research is all about what I can observe directly, what my intuition can gain from those direct observations, what's demonstrable, what's repeatable, what's shareable, right? So let's continue along that path. I'm not going to call it science. It's not science. Science is a tool of the enemy to deceive us, and it's all, tricks and deception. So this is the complete opposite. If the cloud weighs 1 million pounds, how does it stay afloat? Now you see this is not such a trivial question as it was maybe, a few minutes ago. Oh my gosh, Keith, you may be onto something. I never thought of it that way. So you're telling me the cloud is heavy? Yeah, it's heavy. Look, here's what, the measurements are showing. I mean, it is water, so water is heavy. Imagine a swimming pool, your swimming pool floating on top of your head. Every other minute, there's a swimming pool going past your head, a big Olympic-sized swimming pool. And that's pretty huge. That's pretty intense right there. Pretty substantial. It's no laughing matter. Okay. Well, how is it doing it? It's hotter than the air. No, it's not hotter than the air. It's colder. It's right near freezing temperature. So then what state of matter is the water in there? Okay, then we're getting to the answer. We're getting to the answer with the temperature. Okay, well, whatever the case may be, Keys, it's got to be less dense than the air around it. Or no? You got to be kidding me. It can't be heavier than the air. Well, is water heavier than air? Is water more dense than air? Or no? Let's look at the information. Okay? Don't look at me. Look at the information. Do your own research. Okay? Do your own research. Please confirm everything I'm putting on here. And if you can gather more insights and more intel, please share in the comments. Share with your people and your friends, family, everybody, and let me know. I'd love to hear your questions, your concerns, and anything you can gather that beyond what I'm saying here. So we know there is no gravity. I don't want to get into the subject too much. There's great channels covering that subject. There is no gravity. There's no such thing as gravity. I'm not going to go into detail there. So you do your research if you haven't realized that. The Earth is not a ball. There is no outer space. We know all these things. They are given. if you don't know them and you came across this channel, please research them at length, and then you can kind of come back and know what I'm talking about. Okay. I'm not going to go into those subjects because this video is long enough, and they're outside the scope of this video, and those subjects have been covered at length, but by several YouTubers, several channels that are doing a great job. I would say though that there is some sort of inertial plane of acceleration that is giving us the up and down. And there's a channel that covers that as well. I wouldn't call it gravity. I wouldn't call it a force spirit, but there is something giving us the mass. And that's a whole nother, rabbit hole. I'm not going to get dragged into that right now. But just think that, for example, how does a bicycle, fall down when you just let it go, but when you're riding it, it's standing up. So just some food for thought. That's for another video. But a spinning top, a motorbike, these things, they don't just stand up. Oh, it's equilibrium. Equilibrium, no. If it's, you set it up on the two wheels, it's going to fall over unless you're riding it, overcoming the inertial acceleration. Anyway, that is given by the plane of inertia that's beneath us because it's exerting some kind of influence. But anyway, going back to the clouds. Why are they floating? How are they floating? Two different questions. This one, right now, I'm more concerned with the how. How is it that, 100, million or 1,000,000 pounds, or if it's 100 clouds, right? More than 1,000,000 pounds of water at any given moment is, going past my head. Without so much effort, it looks like it's doing it effortlessly, right? So it's not like there's something holding it up that I can see, right? Maybe there is, and maybe that's part of the answer. What is it? What is holding up the cloud? Because when it rains, it pours, right? And when these clouds unload on you, they unload on us. I mean, it's hell or high water. It's it's a flood. If you ever been in a thunderstorm, if you ever experienced like a monsoon or like heavy rain, those suckers they pack a wallop. Okay, so they can drown you in an instant. They can create rivers, literally rivers, and I'm like flash flooding. I'm talking flash flooding here. So this is no small matter. No, I mean there's not a small quantity of water in those clouds. It's a huge quantity of water. Rivers gushing, plains just underwater. The desert can become, a huge river with a flash flood in 5 minutes. So, those clouds have a huge capacity to carry matter and water. And how are they doing it? They're defying, the forces of nature that we see at work. So let's go back to the data here. Okay, so what do we have so far? Because I've spoken long enough. I'm gonna be putting all the proofs here. So just if you can read along when the slides while I'm talking, that's great. If you're hearing this and you're on the treadmill or as kind of a podcast and you're driving, that's great too. You can refer to the material later. So the basics, clouds are made of water. Water is heavier than air. It's about 800 times heavier than air. It's more dense than air. It's, again, about 100 times more dense than air. If the clouds are cold, maybe they're made of ice. So let's look at Google. And what's it telling us? Yes, the clouds are made of ice crystals. Bingo! Bam! There we have some truth. There we're getting close to the answer. So they have to tell you because they're using it for other research. They're using it for other applications. And that's where you get your witness or your suspect to tell you the truth while they're denying the direct questions. You're doing other questionings, around the periphery and you're getting them to tell you the truth. So if the clouds are made of droplets of water, that doesn't make any sense. The water is heavier than the air. It's more dense than the air. It's colder than the air. There's no way that it could be possibly, lifted up without something holding it up. Okay. So Google's telling us, well, there's some ice crystals in there. Wow. Oh, interesting. Crystals. Okay. Well, maybe there's magic in those crystals. Oh my gosh. You're going nuts. You're going bananas here. Well, let's see if there's something to it, right? These ice crystals, are they heavier than air? Yes, they are. Ice is less dense than liquid water, but it's still over 700 times more dense than air, okay? And depending on the pressure, okay, there's going to be a little less pressure there. I'm going to post the information on the pressure differential too, but it's not significant. At least not from what I've seen, but if you can investigate that further, that'd be great. The ice is still going to be a lot, 700 times more dense than the air. So how is it floating? Well, it's not big chunks of ice, Keys. Don't be silly. Well, sometimes it is, and that's when you get hail, right? So sometimes these ice crystals will grow like most crystals do when placed inside a proper medium. And they will come to a point where it can no longer sustain them, the cloud, and they rain down hail on your head, ice cubes for free. They're on your drink, on your cup. Well, sometimes it's not as funny as that. It can be very dangerous. But in its usual state, when the cloud is, white and beautiful and, ever changing, it's made up of these tiny microscopic, if you will, crystals. But it's still heavy. It's still massive. It's still 100, million pounds, a million pounds, whatever the case may be. What's holding it up there? How is it floating? Again, I ask you. So now we come to the answer. Here we go. Well, there must be some type of energy or something that's keeping it up there, against, not gravity, but against the inertia of the mass. Okay? Per this earth realm, per this 3D holographic reality, or whatever analogy you want to come up with, because whatever model we come up with is always going to come short of what this reality is. But what I'm telling you is that this reality is more magical than you imagine. It's more magical than I imagine. Okay, so even the clouds, they're full of magic. In this case, it's energy. Those tiny crystals have been so energized that they are literally repelling the cloud, the water in the state of crystallization, against the earth, okay, against the inertia. It's overcoming, over 1 million pounds of inertia. So it has so much energy. And what do you mean it has so much energy? Well, you can see that when it turns into lightning, plasma discharges. Ta-da! There you have the proof. They're loaded with energy. What's giving them so much energy? Where is it coming from? Well, those are some questions that I'm going to leave, up to you to investigate further, okay? Because these videos are long enough. I don't want to make them longer than they need to be. But this is more about questioning ourselves, questioning, what do you really know? What do we really know? As awake that you think you are, as woke that you think you are. Oh, the Earth is flat. Okay, there is no space. Okay, this is bogus. Inflation is contrived. Okay, great. But we still have a long way to go, buddy. So do I. We both still have a long way to go. We've been blinded beyond comprehension. Sorry about that. We've been blinded beyond belief. The level of trickery and the level of lies that have been fed to us since we were children, since we were infants, generation after generation, is taking a toll. So that we can't even look at the clouds and wonder in amazement. Oh my gosh, they're floating. How are they floating? It's a miracle of God. It isn't what it is, truly. And if you're not, religious, you're not spiritual, that's not, I'm not going to tell you it's great. That's not great. You need to do more research. And you can, it's a lie that you need to be, believe and, you need to be blind, belief, and dogmatic to know the things of God. No, you don't. You can be really analytical. What I'm telling you here about the clouds, it's like super uber analytical. Okay? And that's leading me back to God. Because that's what it's meant to do. Okay? Right brain, left brain, no brain. That's all a scam. It's a ruse. You are what you are. You have certain different tendencies, each individual does, of perceiving reality. But if you're fed the correct information, you will the correct inputs and data, you're gonna find your way to God. So keep looking, okay? Keep doing more thinking, research, but be careful what you feed your system, because if you're feeding it garbage, all you're gonna find is garbage and existentialism, nihilism, and Luciferianism BS. Okay, so this is beyond like, if you're Christian, if you're Hindu, if you're Muslim, if you're atheist, if you're Wiccan, or if you're practice the New Age stuff, or if you don't. It's beyond that. It's beyond that. Okay, so God is beyond any such things. He's indescribable, ineffable. One thing he does is that he displays his power in front of us, to our amazement and our wonderment, so that we may, perceive him, so that we may actually see him. Okay? So the clouds floating up in the air with millions and millions of pounds of water in the form of crystals, which are energized crystals, it's pretty darn amazing. It's pretty darn amazing. It's an unbelievable feat. It's a supernatural feat. It's no laughing matter. It's not simple at all. Okay? So, the proofs, I'm going to put a bunch of slides here. I even found some scientific papers that are, very good. They're not researching how the clouds are floating. They're just researching the ice crystal formation in the atmosphere. Because again, they compartmentalize, and they blind people with different things, right? Depending on your aptitudes. If you're engineering minded and analytical thinking, they'll blind you with something there. They'll give you, a set of lies, and you can't look beyond your taboos, your constraints. You can't think outside your paradigm. And, if you're very, open and artistic and this and that and the other and new agey, well, they'll give you a different set of constraints. And don't look at the Bible. Because, those people are dogmatic and they're Bible thumpers and they're crazy. Or, don't look at the Vedas. Don't look at the, Bhagavad Gita. That's for Hindus only. Okay? No. Reality is reality. We are where we are, and we're supposed to figure it out. It's part of why we're here. Okay? It's just an innate thing in nature, and you see it in children. Okay? So, again, it's just unbelievable, the level of brainwashing and this cloud thing. Take a peek, do your own investigations, check out all the slides here, see for yourselves. The temperature argument doesn't cut it. The density argument doesn't cut it. Okay? Then what's the next logical explanation? Okay? The ice crystals. the tiny microscopic ice crystals that compose the clouds, they are highly energized. You could say electric, but I don't want to say electric because electricity is one type of energy that is mostly artificial and manufactured by humans. Okay? It doesn't necessarily represent what there is in nature. There might be other forms of energy, and I'm not talking about some ethereal, energy that's unobservable. No, I'm talking about like real energies. Okay, I'm talking about lightning, for example. So there's definitely something that's energizing the clouds. I have an idea what it is. I might do it on a later video. It's energizing the ice crystals. It's energizing the water in the air. Remember, air is going to be over 50% water. That's your percentage humidity. Air is chock full of water. Okay? And you can prove that very easily with condensation. Okay? And now they have these machines where you can, pour yourself a glass of water by just condensing water from the air. So we've had that for thousands of years, people observing condensation. So there's huge amounts of water in the air, over 40%, over 50%, depends on where you are. There's something energizing that water at a certain altitude. It's giving that, if you want to call it electricity, but it's giving it energy, and it's creating it into crystals. It's morphing it. It's resonating it into crystals. These crystals have so much energy that they kind of bind together. They interplay, and that's why you see the clouds moving with the air, and they have such power that they start floating. They float, but you'll see the clouds go up and down sometimes, and depending on when you are, they can even crash into the mountains or stay in the mountain or come down lower. Sometimes even to the lakes, and you'll get mist, and they'll rise back up. You'll get fog. Okay, remember when it's foggy, the clouds coming down all the way down. So there's different interplays with the energetic systems that are around us, around the things that we can't see with our eyes, for example, but we can perceive with other senses. So there might be ley lines of magnetism, from the earth, from the mountains, from the ground, and they have this interplay, which is sort of almost supernatural, which I think it is. It's a supernatural energization, and it's an energy cycle. Okay, and there's a paper here that I found from NASA, of all places, where they're telling you, oh, the clouds and their involvement with the energy cycle. And then they start giving you a bunch of garbage. But the title itself, they're mocking us. Okay, they're mocking our stupidity and our ignorance. Because let's face it, we are so darned ignorant. We're completely ignorant. We don't know a thing. Okay, and this cloud, with the clouds I've just showed you, we don't know anything. Okay, on the other hand, there's this infinite source of wisdom, infinite source of knowledge, which is the creator, whatever you want to call him, her, it. Okay, I usually do him just out of respect, but we know it's not a gendered thing because God is beyond all such petty things. But again, it's infinite knowledge, infinite wisdom, and we're just so limited. And we have to be humble. That if that doesn't humble you, that you're looking at the cloud and you don't know how it floats, and you never ask yourself, then I don't know what will. We need to stay really humble, and we can't be pointing fingers at like, oh, you're not awake, or you don't know. Well, there's some people that might be beyond reasoning. They're just too brainwashed, but there's a lot of people that are really thirsty out there. So please share this information with them. I find myself talking to these people in person. I talked to several people about these ideas before making this video, and just back and forth of ideas, and it's interesting. There's some people out there. There's a good percentage of people, especially the younger ones, that are very thirsty for real knowledge, and they're like sponges. And you tell them a thing, and they immediately pick it up. Of course, they're going to give you the immediate BS answers that they've been taught, for years. But then once you prove them wrong, then their eyes are like become wide, and they're like, wow, and then they want more and more and more and more, and that's natural. That's how we should be, because knowledge, information, wisdom is infinite. Remember that. You could learn something like life changing every single day and live for 1,000 years, and you would still never get close to knowing everything there is to know. You would never even come close to not even like a 0.0111% of what God knows. You would never, because it's infinite. He's infinite. Okay, but we have to try. I mean, we have to learn something every day. You grow, you live. Part of living, part of growing is learning. Okay, and learning real things, not fake things, which is contrary to living, which is part of dying, which is artificial. So again, guys, I really appreciate you watching this video. If you have any counter arguments, please share. I'm going to go now into more of the scriptural side of things, what the Bible says, what the Holy Bible scriptures, what the Holy Vedas say, the Bhagavad Gita on clouds. So I believe these to be sources of keys to the truth as well. Both of them, they're big, huge keys. Why? Because they're from a time in the past that was a little before all this enemy corruption. So it's kind of like you're getting information from beyond enemy lines, per se, if you will, from before the corruption, or before they started, messing around with stuff. You're still gonna find so many translations of the Bible. So that's why I love to compare the different ones and start coming up with trying to find what the Creator is trying to tell me, trying to convey to me. Okay, so this kind of ends the first analytical section, and then we're going to go into that study where I'm going to read a little more. And also, if you're talking about energizing tiny microscopic crystals to a certain point where they can float, that also changes your whole perception and the possibilities that are out there. So, for example, what if you energized other types of crystals that are not just water crystals, different types of crystals, and you can lift 1,000,000 pounds? Well, then you could pretty much lift up anything. You could lift up a car. You could lift up a house. You could lift up an actual elephant. You could lift up an airplane. You could lift up a city. You could lift up a mountain. You see where I'm getting at? So it's so important that we realize these truths for the sake of it and getting closer to our Creator, to our source. But it's also important in a practical sense, because then the realm of what's possible and what's impossible changes. That red line, or that line of possibility, changes. So it's not what they're telling you, and that's why they do it. They do it for all these reasons. They do it so that we stay dumb and stupid, and we're like closer to animals, and we think we're monkeys and all that garbage, and that we become less powerful, and in a practical sense, that you can't do so many more things because you think they're impossible. But if you could energize microscopic crystals of different kinds, then you could lift up anything and you can make it float effortlessly. Okay, so that's very interesting. For why do they put that in the Pandora floating mountains in the movie? Why do they put that up in certain fantasy stories where they have floating cities, floating castles, floating mountains, all these things? Well, they're not so fantastical at all. They are magical, which I'm telling you. Research it, with the energies, but they can be repeatable. So it's something that's not beyond the realm of possibilities in this reality. It's something that could possibly be true. Could possibly be something that could be done. Maybe in our lifetime, not maybe in another lifetime, but maybe you could do, an experiment. But exert caution always, and consult an expert before handling anything that you shouldn't be. But again, energizing the tiny crystals could lead to other incredible possibilities here. Floating, a flight. What if you could energize certain crystals and weave that into a fabric? You could float then, possibly. Why not? Okay. So you see how it changes everything. When you stop thinking, okay, water's made of H2O. Water's not made of H2O. I'm not going to get into that. There's other channels that do a great job of debunking that. Water's not made of H2O. Okay. Atoms and molecules do not exist. Look at my video I did earlier on that. Please check out the channel. Atoms and molecules do not exist. They are fake. They are spurious. They are completely bogus. So I'm giving you a huge key here: the crystals. They are an intricate part of our reality. They form an intricate part of matter. I'm going to do other videos on the subject, but right now, it's pertaining to the clouds. The clouds are in fact made of crystals. You can corroborate this in several different sources. Tiny crystals. They're highly energized, and this is why they're floating. This is how they're floating. Sorry, not why, but how they're floating, and you can see the manifestation of that energy in that huge volume floating over your head. You can also see it when it comes to a certain point when the cloud starts discharging that energy back to the earth, back to the ground via lightning, which is an arc of plasma energy. Okay, and it's huge. Like an average cloud is going to have over a billion volts. Okay, over a billion watts, over a billion volts of energy. I'm not going to call it electricity. You can call it electricity if you want, but it's not necessarily electricity because it's a naturally occurring energy. Electricity is going to be more of your man-made, okay, and they have certain differences that are measurable, okay. So where is all that energy coming from? It's coming from somewhere, okay, and there's rules to it. But again, I'm telling you, these things are supernatural. These things are beyond our comprehension, but that doesn't mean that we're still going to try and explain it to ourselves and find the most logical conclusions and get away from all the BS brainwashing that we've been fed our entire lives. So again, guys, this is kind of the middle of the video. I'm going to go into the scriptures now, and those are mind-blowing as well. So if you don't like a lot of the scriptural stuff, you can pause here and then if not, continue watching, okay, where I'm going to read from the scriptures. I really appreciate you guys. Please share. Please download the videos, repost them, all that. God bless you. And wow, the clouds float. Pretty amazing. One more thing. You could say that the clouds are acting as sort of superconductor material, and that's why they're repelling the downward inertial acceleration. But I don't know if superconductors are real. They might be another hoax. So I mean, I'll put some images here. That may be the case. That may be the case. That still would need the energization of the clouds. The clouds still carry huge amounts of energy. So it's tied together. I'm not gonna say that superconductors at a very cool temperature are like false or real. We have magnetic levitation trains. I haven't studied them in detail, but then you're using a lot of metals and the repulsion between them and and they're you're passing currents through the magnets, so you're activating them and deactivating them. So that could be a thing, but it might not necessarily be the case with the clouds. But again, they're a really cold temperature. They're made of the ice crystals, tiny ice crystals, which can grow, and they can turn into snow. They can turn into other things, and also this would explain a lot of other phenomena. So when you start finding truth, one of the other keys is that you start using your kind of your model, this new model of reality that you've developed, and you start applying it to other areas. So, well, maybe that would explain the flying fish. Well, how is there accounts of worldwide of people seeing fish falling from the sky? Well, if you're getting enough energy to energize the water in the air and the crystals, like I'm telling you, it can carry anything. If it's carrying 1,000,000 pounds of water, it can carry anything. So it can carry fish. You could look at the electrical conductivity of the fish scales. I didn't do that right now, but you could, um, and see if that's a thing, or those properties there. And then, for example, I looked at meteorites, and lo and behold, there is something to it because the meteorites, they're mostly magnetic. Ta-da! They have a lot of nickel in them. They have a lot of other minerals in them that make them really magnetic. So it's pretty much, if you have a meteorite that's a legitimate meteorite, it's going to be magnetic. If it's not magnetic, then it's not a meteorite. Damn, there you go. So the energy, what I'm telling you, that's energizing the clouds, kind of at times even energize these heavy rocks, and then they can rain down on your head. And then you get meteorites, and that's how meteorites are like fly around the air, and then that's how they come crashing down. Where do they originate? Well, that's beyond the scope of this material right now. But that's I hand off the baton to you, the listener. Okay, and don't think for a second that you're here by accident listening to this. Okay, there are no coincidences. Okay, I'll do a video on that too. But there are zero coincidences in this magical earth realm. Okay, 100% supernatural, 100% magical. Okay, zero coincidences. If you're listening to this video, there's a reason why you're listening to this video. You need to share this information with the people that are, willing to listen, that are open-minded, open-hearted, and I really appreciate you guys. So you are part of the solution. Realize that, truth shall set you free. The words were very clear, okay? He didn't say love shall set you free. He didn't say compassion shall set you free. He didn't say violence shall set you free. He didn't say any of those things. He said truth shall set you free, okay? So there's a lot of power in the truth, because at a molecular level, I'm just kidding. Molecules don't exist. I'm just messing with you. No, but there is a fact that at your core level, energetic levels, the crystals inside you, and I'll do videos on that, maybe on another platform, because I don't want to get into the subjects that are taboo. But if you get into those levels, what you're understanding with your mind and your mind body and your physical body, it starts changing you from the up to your soul and your heart. So the truth has an impact. Well, what do I care if it's round or flat, or the clouds float or they don't, or they're lighter than air or they're heavier than air? What do I care? It makes a huge difference on how you perceive the world, your energy, how you're interacting with the world, and what you're putting out into the world. So it's a huge difference. And it also brings you closer to the creator. You take a step towards him, he takes a step towards you. It's kind of like he does that matching funds kind of deal. He loves doing that. And you do it, like you can see it for real in your own life. If you don't believe me, do it. And you'll see, watch this video, digest it, share it, and you're going to take a step towards him. And he's going to take a step towards you. You just watch and see that. Okay, guys? So anyway, love y'all, and have a beautiful rest of your weekend. Bye. From the Holy Bible, the New International Version, we have Genesis 9:14. Whenever I bring clouds over the earth, and the rainbow appears in the clouds. God's telling you flat out who's bringing the clouds, who makes the clouds, who makes the clouds float, how they float. Whenever I bring clouds over the earth. So again, whenever you see a cloud up in the sky, it's not just floating Let me see you just floating. Let me see your car just floating. It just won't. It just won't float. Okay, won't just float. Okay, it's floating because God is willing it to float through a series of steps, probably. Okay, that we can probably find out. But mainly, it's forming these crystals that are highly energized particles, and they are countering the inertial acceleration downward of over 1,000,000 pounds. Pretty amazing stuff. So it's in the Bible. It's in the Bible, and that's pretty uncanny. Again, we are tying the new knowledge, that new discoveries, with the old scriptures, and that's a big, huge key to the truth. So the keys to the truth doesn't mean that, oh, I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't know the truth, but I have a playbook that I've developed through the years, and that's what I call the keys. Okay, so one of the keys is the Bible. Another key is these new discoveries. So you tie them together, you see if they match, and you get a third key on your way to the truth. Okay, so again from the Bible, in Jeremiah 10:13, and then again in Jeremiah 51:16, he says the same thing twice. It's the same verse twice in the Bible. So I don't know if that happens in any other case, but so this is important. Okay, so it reads like this: when he thunders, the waters in the heavens roar. He makes clouds rise from the ends of the earth. He sends lightning with the rain and brings out the wind from his storehouses. Wow. He's telling us flat out, he makes the clouds rise from the ends of the earth. Literally. This is not an allegory. This is not a metaphor. Okay? As I've just shown you with proof, with solid evidence, the clouds form due to the, and I told you all that with the energy and the crystals. But in the Bible, it's telling you who is doing it and why he's doing it. And he says this reads when he thunders. If you read like the Hebrew, which I'll post here as well, and the Greek, you get certain nuances, or he says when he thunders or when he speaks. So here the thunders and the speaks are very intertwined because, God has a thunderous voice, the Ruach, a very strong, thunderous voice, which in Hebrew is the Ruach and the Holy Spirit. And in Sanskrit, very interestingly, it's called Rudrak. And from here we get the chant, which is the Sri Rudram. So let me read to you what that Sri Rudram says, which is invoking the thunderous power of the Holy Spirit. And again, don't get tripped up from, he's combining different religions. There's no, there's different religions, but there's one God, okay? So get past that, please. Okay, so the Sri Rudram reads, salutations to him who is in the clouds and who is also enlightening. Very interesting, very interesting. So let's go back to the Bible and see how that plays out on there. Okay. Again, it's telling you whose power is manifesting. And the fact that we're not bewildered by looking at the millions and millions of pounds of water floating above our heads, again, goes back to how brainwashed we are. So next time, I promise you won't look at clouds the same ever again. Next time you see a cloud, realize there's a huge amount of power going into them and keeping them afloat. And it's God's power. Because he's in the clouds. Who is in the clouds? Who calls them up? God does. Here we get Ezekiel mentioning a lot of clouds too. I looked, and I saw a windstorm coming out of the north, an immense cloud with flashing lightning and surrounded by brilliant light. So the center of the fire looked like glowing metal. Again, there's a lot of equating the manifestation that are clouds and the power of God. Why? Because the energy that he emits, it's going to immediately crystallize the particles of water in the air around and immediately energize them to the point where they're coming their mass and their inertia. Okay? So that's kind of how I'm conceptualizing this. Ezekiel 1:28, like the appearance of a rainbow in the clouds on a rainy day, so was the radiance around him. Ezekiel 10:3, now the cherubim were standing on the south side of the temple when the man went in, and the cloud filled the inner court. Ezekiel 10:4, then the glory of the Lord rose from above the cherubim and moved to the threshold of the temple. The cloud filled the temple, and the court was full of the radiance of the glory of the Lord. Let's see what the prophet Daniel has to say. Daniel 7:13. In my vision at night I looked, and there before me was one like a son of man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. He said a man, somebody like a man in the shape of a man, because he's more than a man. He's talking about Christ. He's coming with the clouds of heaven. How can somebody be floating in the clouds? This doesn't make sense if you don't understand how clouds float. But when you do, then it entirely makes sense. And it's entirely physical in this material reality, not just as an analogy or a metaphor, but as a literal thing. So he's so energetic that he can be energizing anything around him. He can be floating up or down. The same things you're going to see that same thing here in Acts 1:9. After he said this, he was taken up before their very eyes, and a cloud hid him from their sight. This is the ascension of Christ after he was resurrected. So it's no small feat. Let me see you get lifted up with the clouds. You can't. I can't. But he can. Because he's got that power, that energy that can energize and levitate. Okay? So this is an actual thing. And I'm showing you how it can be done. Okay? So completely magical and supernatural, yet feasible. Now we have the gospel, and all the gospels sort of agree when on the moment of the transfiguration, where you have Matthew 17:5. When they're up on the mountain, and he was transformed, metamorphosized into a being of light, which I'm going to do a video on that later. It's a very interesting subject. The transfiguration. Matthew 17:5. While he was still speaking, a bright cloud covered them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." Okay, so again, another cloud. Always clouds. Why? Because there's just so much power that it's going to set off the crystals and energize them in the air, the water crystals. Okay, turns the water in the air into crystals, energizes them, and lifts them up with that tremendous amount of energy. So it's there in the scriptures. I'm not making this up. Then we get into the book of Revelations, Apocalypse. Revelation 1:7 or Apocalypse 1:7. Look, he's coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him, even those who pierced him, and all peoples on earth will mourn because of him. So shall it be. Revelation 10:1. Then I saw another mighty angel coming down from heaven. He was robed in a cloud, with a rainbow above his head. His face was like the sun, and his legs were like fiery pillars. Again, the cloud. So very interesting. Okay, Revelation 11:12. Then they heard a loud voice from heaven saying to them, "Come up here." And they went up to heaven in a cloud while their enemies looked on. So, sort of like Goku, right? You're traveling on a cloud, but this seems just far-fetched. It seems unreal. I showed you earlier in the video that if you can energize the water, it crystallizes. With enough energy, it can lift up anything. Okay? And you could probably apply that to different kinds of crystals. So, there. Not so fantastic. I mean, it's supernatural and magical. It's powerful, but it's not outside the realm of possibility. And then Revelation 14:14, I looked, and there before me was a white cloud, and seated on the cloud was one like a son of man with a crown of gold on his head and a sharp sickle in his hand. Revelation 14:15, then another angel came out of the temple and called in a loud voice to him who was sitting on the cloud, take your sickle and reap, because the time to reap has come, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. When you realize these things, another thing opens up as well. You start being able to explain weather manipulation, and that's beyond the scope of the video. That's why I missed it, but I just want to relate that because you can tie in with that as well. Weather manipulation. So that's why they have these HARP arrays, right? Which are sending out these energetic signals and vibrations, which can energize the air and the crystals, and play around play the games they play. So they don't control the Earth's weather, but they can fiddle with it up to a certain extent, a small extent. They don't have nearly the power capabilities that it would take to control the weather every day, 100% of the time. But they can certainly mess around with it, and what I've shown you in this video gives you more of a framework of how that's being done. Okay, so it's the energization of the water in the air that gives it a certain type of energy and crystallization, and you can get weather manipulation that way as well. So that's more for you guys to research and for me as well. Thank you. All right, so let's check here what the Vedas say, the ancient Vedic wisdom says about clouds, in the form of the Upanishads, which are they're like the jewels or the pearls of wisdom that are tied to the Vedas. From the Krishna Yajur Veda, Shvetashvara Upanishad, we have here section 4.4, thou art the dark butterfly, the dark blue butterfly, and the green parrot with red eyes. Thou art the thunder cloud, the seasons and the oceans. Thou art without beginning, and beyond all time and space. Thou art he from whom all the worlds are born. Okay, here from the Abhyakta Upanishad, which is tied to the Samaveda. Abhyakta Upanishad from the Samaveda. Section 2.4.1. One should meditate on the fivefold Saman in all the waters. When a cloud gathers, it is the syllable him. When it rains, it is prashtava. Those waters that flow to the east are Udgita. So they're telling you it's a song. It's a resonating energy that is gathering up the clouds. And here on the next ones, you might see it more clearly. Reading further from the Vedas and the Upanishads, we get the white clouds gather. That is Himkara. The rain-bearing cloud is formed. That is Prashtava. When it rains, that is Udgita. Udgita is the highest chant, which is in reference to Christ. Check that out in my other video, Christ mentioned in the Vedic literature. When it flashes and thunders, that is Pratihara. It ceases, that is Nidana. This is the Vairupa Saman woven in the rain cloud. He who thus knows that this Virupa Saman as woven in the rain cloud acquires cattle of handsome and manifold forms, reaches the full length of life, lives gloriously, becomes great with offspring and cattle, and great and also with fame. His holy vow is that he should not find fault with the rain cloud when it rains. So, according to this, you and I, should do wonderfully. Hopefully so, right? Just by knowing what's up with the clouds, right, and how they float. It's telling you here that there's great mystery in the formation of clouds, and hopefully we've elucidated some of that today further. And I apologize for using this pure English translation. It's just the video is pretty long, and but you can always refer to the original Sanskrit or the transliteration to get a better sense of the wording that they're actually using, because we know these translations are highly suspect. Section 5 here, reciting in that till they have exhausted, they then return again the same way as they came. They come to Akasha, and from Akasha to air. Having become air, they become smoke. Having become smoke, they become the white cloud. Having become the white cloud, they become the cloud, the rain-bearing cloud. Having become the cloud, they fall as rain. So they have different words for cloud in Sanskrit, several. That's why you keep seeing this repetition. So that's why I say we would need to go to the Sanskrit, but that would be for another video. Having become the cloud, they fall as rain. Then they are born in this world as rice and barley, herbs and trees, sesame plants and beans. But the release from this is more difficult for whoever eats the food and sows the seed, they become like him. From him emerges the fire, of which the fuel is the sun. From the moon emerges cloud, and from the cloud the herbs and the corns on the earth. And from there a man sheds the semen into a woman. So this is the cycle of life, the cycle of energy. This cycle of energy has to do with the clouds, and that energy gets transferred over to us eventually. This is what that NASA paper is making fun of. When they're telling you the cycle of energy in the clouds, and they're giving you just complete horse manure and BS, where in reality here the Vedas are telling us how things really work. So there's a lot of wisdom in these ancient texts. Again, huge key to the truth. This cloud is like honey to all beings, and all beings are honey to this cloud. The shining immortal being who is in this cloud, who could that be? Of course, we're talking about God. And the shining immortal being identified with sound and voice in the body are but this self. This self, again, that's a wrong translation. It's talking about this existence. This is immortality. This is Brahman. This is all. Okay? So, Brahman, another word for the creator. Potato. Those rays by which the sun gives heat, the same rays transform water into rain cloud, which showers the rain. By the rain cloud, herbs and trees come into existence. From herbs and trees, food is produced. By the use of food, the breaths and senses are nourished. When the life breath is nourished, one gets bodily strength. Again, this is the real cycle of energy, which initiates with God, of course. Okay, so in this version, we do have the Sanskrit and the transliteration. It says, the collecting of water droplets in the opening chant, Himkara, the birth of clouds in the introductory chant, Prashtava, the rain is central, essential chant, Udgita. The thunder and lightning are the complement. This is the Vairupa woven into the clouds. Again, it's telling you everything that the energizing and the chanting of the earth and the air and the clouds is tied together. And this is the song of God creating the clouds, manifesting the cloud. Wonderful. It's so beautiful. Guys, that's it for me for today. Really appreciate you. God bless.